praise ourselves. We feel it better to let our friends recommend us. And then over to the short form, a couple of pages back, 11, our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We need always maintain personal anonymity of the level of press, radio, and films. So really cool tradition here that's extremely important, as they all are. And you know, what we're trying to preserve in the traditions is the unity of the group. And generally that's done by the behaviors of its individual members. And this one, like all of them, is really important, but this one's dealing with a couple of things, and it's how we behave to the free world out there, right? Everybody else who's out and about, the press, radio, films, and I think if it had been around at that time, I think, you know, social media, I think would probably be lumped in on this deal because it's talking about our public representation, right? And it's important that as AA members, that not be a part of how we publicly display ourselves, because any of our behaviors then start getting tied to our membership as AA members, right? But what's super important is that you know, we don't keep our anonymity inside of AA. You know, that's not what this is referring to. You know, I'm Justin Whitsett, you know, and that we identify ourselves by our first and last name amongst ourselves. It's important. You know, I've heard it talked about, like, you know, if one of our members, you know, gets put in the hospital and we go up there and we want to see him, it's like, yeah, I'm looking for John S., you know, and, you know, how are we going to help our brothers and sisters out there? And so one of the other things is, you know, when we talk about this idea of attraction rather than promotion, you know, when we're talking about these traditions, it's down to the individual's behavior to protect the traditions and to protect the unity of the group. And I think it's important to focus on this idea of attraction rather than promotion that it states in here, and this idea of pride, because what we're trying to maintain through the steps is humility. And this tradition speaks directly to that I'm not going out as an AA fanatic and trying to, you know, change the world and convince everybody that this is the only way to get sober. You know, that's not going to be this attraction, rather, you know, that's not going to be attraction. That falls into that category of promotion. But there's a statement in the long form as well about this: there is never need to praise ourselves. You know, these things are designed to not only protect the group, but to protect the AA member from himself, right? The real threat here is the self, the ego, and so following these traditions are designed to keep that in check and thereby preserving AA's unity. That's all I have.
Thanks, Justin. Okay, now for our meeting. We have elected to use the Big Book study guide prepared by members of our group to help us stay focused on the study of the Big Book. There are one or more questions for virtually every sentence in the basic text. The chairperson will read a question and call upon a member to read the related sentence. This is not a discussion meeting, so please keep your comments to the question being studied. We have a lot of visitors every week, and we love it so much that you guys are here. The format is a little different than what you are probably used to. So keep in mind before you comment, is what you're saying going to bring enlightenment or reference to what we're reading, or is it going to take you back to your own story? So we want to keep it based on the solution as it's outlined in the book. Okay. So finally, it is well for all of us to remember the words of Bill W., one of the co-founders of Alcoholics Anonymous. Sobriety, freedom from alcohol, through the teaching and the practice of the 12 steps, is the sole purpose for any Alcoholics Anonymous group. Therefore, any comments other than those relating to your alcoholism should be reserved for another time and another place. Tonight, we're starting on page 37 of the Big Book, And I've asked Emily Cheek to be our loud reader. You're going to have to unmute yourself, Em.
Okay, I did. Okay, I'm going to start the bottom sentence of 36. Yet all reasons for not drinking were easily pushed aside in favor of the foolish idea that he could take whiskey if only he mixed it with milk. Whatever the precise definition of the word may be, we call this plain insanity. How can such a lack of proportion of the ability to think straight be called anything else? You may think this an extreme case. To us, it is not far-fetched for the kind of thinking that has been characteristic of every single one of us. We have sometimes reflected more than Jim did upon the consequences, but there was always the curious mental phenomenon that parallel with our sound reasoning, there inevitably ran some insanely trivial excuse for taking the first drink. Our sound reasoning failed to hold us in check. The insane idea won out. Next day, we would ask ourselves in all earnestness and sincerity how it could have happened. In some circumstances, we have gone out deliberately to get drunk, feeling ourselves justified by nervousness, anger, worry, depression, jealousy, or the like. But even in this type of beginning, we are obliged to admit that our justification for a spree was insanely insufficient in the light of what always happened. We now see that when we begin to drink deliberately instead of casually, there was little serious or effective thought during the period of premeditation of what the terrific consequences might be. Our behavior is as absurd and incomprehensible with respect to the first drink as that of an individual with a passion, say, for jaywalking. He gets a thrill out of skipping out in front of fast-moving vehicles. He enjoys himself for a few years in spite of friendly warnings, up to the point you would label him as a foolish chap, having queer ideas of fun.
Great, thanks, Emily. Okay, we're going to go to the second full paragraph. And question 10, Emily, is a two-parter. So 10A, do we occasionally decide to get drunk and then go do it?
You may think this is an extreme case.
The next paragraph.
Oh, I'm sorry. In some circumstances, we have gone out deliberately to get drunk.
Okay, and the B part, what prompts us to do such a crazy thing?
Feeling ourselves justified by nervousness, anger, worry, depression, jealousy, or the like.
Perfect. What are we obliged to admit after such a binge?
But even in this type of beginning, we are obliged to admit that our justification for a spree was insanely insufficient in the light of what always happened.
Perfect. And the next one's a two-parter. 13A, what do we come to understand when we start drinking deliberately?
We now see that when we begin to drink deliberately instead of casually.
And the B part, at this stage of the disease, can we imagine what the consequences will be when we start drinking?
There was little serious or effective thought during the period of premeditation of what the terrific consequences might be.
Great. And the comment in the study guide says, as we study the story of the jaywalker, look for the similarities between that crazy fool and us, the chronic alcoholic. Okay, Emily. Page, new paragraph. To whom do the first 100 compare our behavior?
Our behavior is as absurd and incomprehensible with respect to the first drink of that of an individual with a passion, say, for jaywalking.
Okay. And question 16, what really thrilled this guy?
He gets a thrill out of skipping in front of fast-moving vehicles.
Perfect. And the next one's a two-parter. Was he having fun?
He enjoys himself for a few years.
Did his actions bother his friends?
In spite of friendly warnings.
And the comment says, did your drinking bother your friends? And the last question, Emily, how did folks label him?
Up to this point, you would label him as a foolish chap, having queer ideas of fun.
Great. Okay, let's open it up for comments. Does anyone want to catch us up? We started kind of in a weird place.
Sure it does.
Hey guys, go ahead and cut me off if I end up glitching. So, obviously we're in the chapter more about alcoholism, one of the most referenced chapters in the book. And what they aim to discuss in this chapter is what they talk about on page 35. It says, so we'll describe some of the mental states that precede a relapse into drinking, for obviously that is the crux of the problem. So it tells me that the main problem for the alcoholic centers in the mind. So I can't use a sick mind to heal a sick mind, nor can I try to thwart any sort of plan that my mind is going to come up with my own mind. So last week we talked about Jim's story, which obviously I think it was even mentioned before the meeting started, all the controversy surrounding that. You know, people often think that, oh, well, Jim was, resentful, or he was this, or maybe even the silliness of hungry, angry, lonely, tired, which is not true. Simply, Jim's problem was that he failed to enlarge his spiritual life, right? Through work and self-sacrifice for others. That's the simple solution. So because he failed to do that, he's dragging his feet, ego reemerged, and all of a sudden his mind pretties up a junkyard to take him back to the very thing that's trying to kill him. And it shows up with whiskey and milk. And then we'll see later on, as we start to talk about, we got this jaywalker, and then we even got Fred's story. But the part that I want to touch up real quick is that it says that there's little serious or effective thought during this period of premeditation in the paragraph we just read. Effective thought. There may be some thought, but unfortunately, it's not effective when combating alcoholism. That's all I got.
Thanks, Jared. Anyone else?
That's it.
All right. Okay, Emily, read page 38 for me.
Okay. Luck then deserts him, and he is slightly injured several times in succession. You would expect him, if he were normal, to cut it out. Presently, he is hit again, and this time has a fractured skull. Within a week after leaving his hospital, a fast-moving trolley car breaks his arm. He tells you he's decided to stop jaywalking for good, but in a few weeks, he breaks both legs. On through the years, this conduct continues, accompanied by his continual promises to be careful or to keep off the streets altogether. Finally, he can no longer work, his wife gets a divorce, and he's held up to ridicule. He tries every known means to get the jaywalking idea out of his head. He shuts himself up in an asylum, hoping to mend his ways. But the day he comes out, he races in front of a fire engine, which breaks his back. Such a man would be crazy, wouldn't he? You may think our illustration is too ridiculous, but is it? We who have been through the ringer have to admit, if we substituted alcoholism for jaywalking, the illustration would fit us exactly. However intelligent we may have been in other respects, where alcohol has been involved, we have been strangely insane. It's strong language, but isn't it true? Some of you are thinking, yes, what you tell us is true, but it doesn't fully apply. We admit we have some of these symptoms, but we have not gone to the extremes you fellows did, nor are we likely to, for we understand ourselves so well after what you have told us that such things cannot happen again. We have not lost everything in life through drinking, and we certainly do not intend to. Thanks for the information.
Perfect. Thank you, Emily. Okay, before we move on, Raquel raised her hand.
Yeah, but it's okay. I can wait after you read that. Don't worry. It's fine.
Okay,
Thank you.
we'll come back to you. You're welcome. Okay, Emily, let's start back at the top of the page. What happened to him when his luck ran out?
Luck then deserts him, and he is slightly injured several times in succession.
If he were normal, what would he have done at this point?
You would expect him, if he were normal, to cut it out.
And the comment says, if you were a normal person, what would you have done when your drinking started causing you problems? Question 3, but since he apparently was not normal, what happened to him next?
Presently, he is hit again, and this time has a fractured skull.
Good. Within a week, what happened?
Within a week after leaving the hospital, a fast-moving trolley car breaks his arm.
Okay, the next one's a two-parter. 5A, with that piece of bad luck, what did he decide to do?
He tells you he has decided to stop jaywalking for good.
And the comment reads, after some pretty tragic consequences resulting from your drinking, what did you decide to do? And 5B, what are the consequences of his inability to manage that decision to quit for good and all?
But in a few weeks, he breaks both legs.
And the comment says, what have been the consequences of your inability to manage your decision to quit for good and all? Okay, let's stop right there. Raquel, do you have a comment?
Okay, yes. Hi, my name is Raquel and I'm an alcoholic. I did also wanted to share in the paragraph that we read before because, you know, in the page alone, I see kind of like a similarity in the spiritual experience that they use several kinds of words for change. So I saw here in this page also there's so many words that they use for the thinking, right? For the premeditation, the curious mental phenomenon, the sound reasoning, insane. I mean, the kind of thinking that is particular to us, all these things, you know. I love that since then it's almost like that establishing of like, do not trust your mind. That's not just like, do not, there's no good ideas in there. Like you can come up with a lot of justifications that that's not going to be the place to go to. And then I love because I cannot remember very often the times that I was I premeditated my drink, but when I think about it, there we go again. When I think about it, like I see it. I see that. I love what it says. Like even if I think about it and I get that case of the I don't care, like whatever, I'm just gonna do it. It's never even sufficient for me to know what's gonna happen once I get drunk. What's gonna happen to that person once I put something in my body? What's gonna happen to me? Where will I end up? You know. So that's what I wanted to share before. Thank you.
Thank you, Raquel.
Ramona.
Hi, I'm Ramona. I'm an alcoholic.
Ramona, it looks like you muted yourself again.
Okay. I looked at this progression, and on the question on page 38, number 1 said what happened to him when his luck started to run out. Well, he started getting slightly injured. Well, that's kind of what happened when my luck ran out when I was drinking. I kind of got slightly injured, and you know, it was okay. I could keep going. But then when it got bad, the first thing that happened was he got a fractured skull. When I'm drinking and everything, the first thing that goes is my mental control. And then whenever it gets bad enough, within a week, he broke his arms. Well, that took me to page 28, where it talked about they were drowning men and grabbing for a life preserver. But you have to use your arms to grab the life preserver. But his arms are broken. Mine were broken. I couldn't get that. And then the last thing that's happened is he had 2 broken legs. And that's on page 30, where he lost his legs and he can't grow new ones. So it's kind of like the same order of the physical things that happen to the jaywalker, or the same order of the physical things that happen to us in our drinking. That's I thought that parallel was pretty good. And then they said everything says, what did he quit trying? Well, that's page 30. The delusion was, if he was normal, the delusion that he is like others has to be smashed. And that was the same thing for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Ramona.
Thanks, Ramona.
You're good to move on, Lee.
Okay, Emily, new paragraph, next question. Did he keep on trying to quit?
On through the years, this conduct continues, accompanied by his continual promises to be more careful or to keep off the streets altogether.
Perfect. And the comment says, did you keep trying to quit? The next one's a two-parter. 8A, did his problem cost him his job?
Finally, he can no longer work.
And the comment says, did your drinking cost you a job? 8B, did his problem cost him his wife?
His wife gets a divorce and he's
And
held up.
the comment reads, did your drinking cost you some members of your family? This is really a three-parter. And 8C, did it make a fool of him?
And he is held up to ridicule.
Perfect. And did your problem make a fool out of you?
Yes.
Okay. Next question. Did he try everything he could think of to quit?
He tries every known means to get the jaywalking idea out of his head.
Question 12. How far did he go in trying to find a way to quit jaywalking?
He shuts himself up in an asylum, hoping to mend his ways.
And the comment in the study guide says, how far have you gone to try to stay dry? Question 13. What happened the day he left the security at lockup?
But the day he comes out, he races in front of a fire engine, which breaks his back.
And does this parallel any experience that you might have had? What label would you and everyone else put on this guy?
Such a man would be crazy, wouldn't he?
And the comment reads, what label would people who know you place on you? Okay, any comments?
So we have Robin.
Okay, so it says here that he tries every known means to get the jaywalking idea out of his head. And most of the people that know people like us or people like him don't understand that that's the problem. We can't get this idea out of our heads. But most people think that, well, if we can just quit drinking, or, you know, if we just can stay away from it for a certain period of time, or if we can get away from those friends who are bad influence, or, you know, whatever, if we can just stay away from that kind of stuff, then we'll be okay. But just like this jaywalker, no, because I can stay away from it for all kinds of time if you put me in the right circumstances, but my mind is still going to keep going and going and going. And then given the opportunity, I'm going to drink again. So the problem is my mind. And what we need to fix here is the mind. And that's what people don't get.
Thank you, Robin. Rick?
Well, a lot's been said about the insanity that precedes the drink, things like that. But since we are a study group, one thing is put your own drinking career and the history of it here. And did you ever switch from beer to tequila or something like that? Because beer was putting too much weight on you, and the next thing you know, tequila's got you in trouble. So you're drinking a clear amber liquid, or you switch from red wine to white wine, back to rosé, or maybe you switch to these pills that are supposed to help you not drink so much, and the next thing you know, you're taking the pills and drinking on top of them and ending up in the ER. So one of the things that took me years to learn in this program is that to relate my situations that were to the jaywalker story here. And you notice that he starts out running in front of swift moving or fast moving vehicles. Then the next thing you know, it gets a little worse because he switched to trolleys, and they start doing physical damage to him, breaking his arms and his legs. Then he gets a divorce, and then finally in the end he switches to fire engines, which breaks his back. And he doesn't say the rest of the story, but maybe put him in a wheelchair. But anyway, I'll hush up with that. Look at your situations And really, if you think this story is just too crazy for you, think of the things you used to do that kind of related to the same thing the jaywalker did. That's it.
Thanks, Rick. Eugene.
Yeah, Ricky grabbed my point there. I never figured out the jaywalking thing, but tonight it just hit me, the progression of the disease. That, each time he stops, it gets worse. And when he starts up, it gets worse. And then even, when he's at the asylum and he's been away from it for a while, what do? The very first thing is you run right out to the bar, run right out to the fire engine, and it's progressive and it's fatal. Thanks.
Thanks, Eugene. And lastly, David R.
Yes, I just realized I got to slow down on the highway a whole lot. When I was introduced to AA, I went to a rehab, the asylum as they call it here, and I learned a whole lot about what alcoholism was and everything like that. And I really needed to came deep in my heart that I needed to stay sober one day at a time. And the day I left rehab, I was like him. I just walked out and my brain started thinking. But before that, I said, "There's no effing way I can stay sober out here on my own." But I prayed so hard. I said, "God, please help me stay sober today." And God sort of intervened and it showed me that 4 kids were sitting on a curb passing a bottle in the country town, and I sort of sat there and saw this thing and said, if I take a drink, where will that take me? And I had no idea where that was going to take me. I was scared to death, and I stayed away from a drink. Went to a meeting, and but God sort of helped me throughout. As someone said, I did not fail to grow along spiritual lines as a newcomer. And I think God meets you wherever you are, whenever you need Him. But thank you.
Thanks, David. Good to go, ladies.
Awesome. Okay. Bonnie, will you pick up where Emily left off? We're going to start on the next paragraph. Question 15. Okay. Is this illustration ridiculous? And it's 2 sentences.
You may think our illustration is too ridiculous, but is it?
Question 16. What will we real alcoholics admit?
We, who have been through the ringer, have to admit if we substituted alcoholism for jaywalking, the illustration would fit us exactly.
Question 17. As intelligent and as smart as we are, what do we honestly admit?
However intelligent we may have been in other respects, where alcohol has been involved, we have been strangely insane.
Is it true or false?
It's strong language, but isn't it true?
What do some alcoholics think?
Some of you are thinking, yes, what you tell us is true, but it doesn't fully apply.
And question 20. Since we have done a good job of explaining alcoholism and they are full of self-knowledge, are they confident they can manage a decision to stay sober? And it's the rest of the paragraph.
We admit we have some of these symptoms, but we have not gone to the extremes you fellows did, nor are we likely to, for we understand ourselves so well after what you've told us that such things cannot happen again. We have not lost everything in life through drinking, and we certainly do not intend to.
One more sentence.
Thanks for the information.
Perfect. Do we have any comments?
Looks like Patty.
Hey everybody, my name is Patty. I'm an alcoholic, and great meeting. Thanks for being here tonight. And I was thinking about how it said up here, if he were normal. Well, if he was normal, he wouldn't run out in front of any car, ever, which describes me and my drinking, Everybody said to me, you must be crazy. Yeah, I was. Absolutely certifiable, And so that's what kind of came to my mind there. And then just how the progression keeps going and going. And like the gentleman was saying, how the vehicles got bigger and bigger, you know, and that's how it was for me. Everything got worse and worse and worse. The days were closer together. The more I drank, you know, everything just really accelerated for me. And that's what it's talking about here, how we went through that. And there was one other thing. Oh, thanks for the information part. You know, I'm so glad that I have this here to when I'm working with others, that because it really helps me work with them and say, you know, because they all say I know, and which drives me crazy. But it's good to have this here because then I can show them, yeah, information's great, but it's not everything. Experience and actually doing the work is what matters. So that's all.
Thanks, Patty. Go ahead, Jared.
So that last paragraph that we just touched on says, however intelligent we may have been in other respects, where alcohol has been involved, we have been strangely insane. It's strong language, but isn't it true? You know, I can't tell you how many times I've sat knee to knee with another guy and told them how insane they were, and people will get offended. Well, I'm not crazy, I'm not insane. And you know, if I'm answering honestly in my heart of hearts, the most insane thing that I will ever do is pick up another drink. Because I picked that up without an ounce of booze in me. The most insane thing I will ever do in my entire life, I do from a state of consciousness known as sobriety. And that's pick up another drink, despite all its intended pain and suffering. And no amount of love and no amount of consequences is going to keep me away from doing that.
Thanks, Jared. Robin Reed.
Okay, so we think self-knowledge will keep us sober. And I like what Patty was saying about how a lot of times people, you know, when we're 12-stepping over, they'll say, I know, and I hate that too. The funny thing is, it doesn't matter what we know, because if what we knew could keep us sober, we wouldn't need this 12-step program. It's like if I have the flu and I go out on the internet, or maybe I have cancer and I go out on the internet and I do all kinds of research about it, that's not going to solve my cancer. I can know all kinds of things about cancer, but it's not going to solve my problem. I have to actually then take action to solve my problem. Whether I know all kinds of things about cancer or not, if I don't take action, nothing's going to happen. And if I take action, I don't need to understand what's happening for it to solve my problem. So knowing something it doesn't make a bit of difference. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Robin. We're going to go ahead and move on because we have kind of a lot to get through if we don't end up in the middle of Red's story. Okay, Bonnie, will you read page 39 for me?
Absolutely. That may be true of certain non-alcoholic people who, though drinking foolishly and heavily at the present time, are able to stop or moderate because their brains and bodies have not been damaged as ours were. But the actual or potential alcoholic, with hardly an exception, will be absolutely unable to stop drinking on the basis of self-knowledge. This is a point we wish to emphasize and re-emphasize to smash home upon our alcoholic readers, as it has been revealed to us out of bitter experience. Let us give another illustration. Fred is a partner in a well-known accounting firm. His income is good, he has a fine home, is happily married, and the father of promising children of college age. He has so attractive a personality that he makes friends with everyone. If ever there was a successful businessman, it is Fred. To all appearances, he is a stable, well-balanced individual. Yet, he is alcoholic. We first saw Fred about a year ago in a hospital where he had gone to recover from a bad case of jitters. It was his first experience of this kind, and he was much ashamed of it. Far from admitting he was an alcoholic, he told himself he came to the hospital to rest his nerves. The doctor intimated strongly that he might be worse than he realized. For a few days he was depressed about his condition. He made up his mind to quit drinking altogether. It never occurred to him that perhaps he could not do so in spite of his character and standing. Fred would not believe himself an alcoholic, much less accept a spiritual remedy for his problem. We told him what we knew about alcoholism. You're muted, Lee.
Sorry about that. Okay, who can stay sober based on self-knowledge?
That may be true of certain non-alcoholic people who, though drinking foolishly and heavily at the present time, are able to stop or moderate because their brains and bodies have not been damaged as ours were.
And how well can the actual or potential alcoholic stay away from drinking based on self-knowledge?
But the actual or potential alcoholic, with hardly an exception, will be absolutely unable to stop drinking on the basis of self-knowledge.
Question 3. What point do we want to drive home to the alcoholic?
This is the point we wish to emphasize and re-emphasize, to smash home upon our alcoholic readers as it has been revealed to us out of bitter experience.
One more sentence.
Let us take another illustration.
Great. And the comment reads, as we study Fred's story, again, look for the similarities. Also, this story contains an example of the perfect 12-step call. Okay, Yale, can you pick up for me there, new paragraph? Question 4, what was Fred's profession?
Fred is a partner in a well-known accounting firm.
The next one's a two-parter. 5A, was he in good shape materially?
His income is good. He has a fine home, is happily married.
And the B part is, how was his home life?
He's happily married and the father of promising children of college age.
What kind of personality did he have?
He is so attractive a personality that he makes friends with everyone.
And how was his business life?
There was a successful businessman. It's Fred.
Question 9. Did he appear to be a really normal person, doing well in every area of his life?
To all appearance, he's a stable, well-balanced individual.
And what is his one small problem?
Yet, he's an alcoholic.
The next one is a three-parter. 11A. When had the AAs first seen Fred?
We first saw Fred about a year ago in a hospital.
And the B part, where did they meet him?
Where he'd gone to, in a hospital where he'd gone to recover from a bad case of the jitters.
Perfect, that was the C part. Okay, the next one is a two-parter. Had he experienced this before?
This was his first experience of this kind.
And how did he feel about it?
And he was much ashamed of it.
Perfect. The next one is also a two-parter. Could he admit that he was an alcoholic?
Far from admitting he was an alcoholic.
And the B part, what rationalization did he come up with?
He told himself he came to the hospital to rest his nerves.
Question 18. What did the doctor try to impress on him?
The doctor intimated strongly that he might be worse than he realized.
Great. And how were his spirits?
For a few days, he was depressed about his condition.
Question 20. What decision did he make?
He made up his mind to quit drinking altogether.
The next one is the two-parter. Did he have any doubt that he could manage that decision?
It never occurred to him that perhaps he could not do so.
And the B part, was he apparently successful at every other area of his life?
In spite of his character and standing.
And the comment reads, was Bill W. successful in every other area of his life? Were you successful in every other area of your life? Okay, the next one is also a two-parter. 23A. What was it Fred would not do?
Fred would not believe himself an alcoholic,
And what would Fred not accept?
much less accept a spiritual remedy for his problem.
Great. And 25, what did the AAs tell him?
We told him what we knew about alcoholism.
Fantastic. Thanks, Yale. Okay, any comments?
Looks like Kurt. Excuse me.
Hey, alcoholic named Kurt. In italics, absolutely unable to stop drinking on the basis of self-knowledge. I want to go back to the tradition that was read, if I may, and parallel it with what we're studying now. In tradition 11 long form, there is never need to praise ourselves. And how I'm going to lay that up against the body of work that we're studying now is if I'm unable to stop drinking for good and all on self-knowledge, far be it from me to praise myself on my length of sobriety. The one that gets the praise should be where the spiritual remedy takes me to. For that is the one that has solved this problem for me through this course of action. It is ego deflation at its greatest, laid up against my experience, this body of work in the first step of Alcoholics Anonymous. And in fact, I'm sitting here practically shivering again, looking at the condition that I have. And I'm so grateful for this solution that we're getting ready to launch right into, because it is a hopeless condition. And again, far be it for me to praise myself. The one who has all power gets all the praise. Thank you.
Thanks, Kurt. Robin Mitchell.
I keep going back to page 30 where it says the delusion that we are like other people or presently maybe has to be smashed. And you know, it does talk about the mental state before I drink, but then it's the mental state after, like, of me trying to stop drinking. And there's the craziness of me putting in the action to pick up, but then there's the craziness of me actually believing that I'm going to be able to manage to not drink just like a normal person. And that's the delusion that when I work with people, they'll go, yeah, I drank again, and they can see that, and then trying to get them to see the other thing, that they actually cannot manage that decision. They have little effective thought at all. I don't know if that makes sense, but I think the obsession is so complex. It's a lot more complex than, you know, as I go on, it becomes more complex in my understanding of it, and just why I need a power greater than myself.
Thanks, Robin. Phil J. Phil, we can't hear you. All right, we will have to come back to Phil. How about you, Mike Mitchell?
Thanks, Hannah. To tag on what Robin was saying, that all alcoholics must go through this decision process, right? To find out if we can or cannot stop on self-knowledge, on our own willpower, or fill in the blank. They told him what they knew about alcoholism. So it indicates that they had more than just their experience, strength, and hope. They had the information from Silkworth. They probably told him all about the mental obsession along with the allergy. And Fred, at this point, he may not be an alcoholic, you know, and they certainly didn't label him at this point. This is a brilliant 12-step call, by the way. They didn't label him an alcoholic. This is something that he is going to have to decide upon his own, and most of us have to get banged up a little bit more, but we're all going to have to, come to that realization on our own that my smarts ain't going to fix this. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Okay, Yale, will you read page 40, please?
Certainly. He was interested and conceded that he has some of the symptoms, but he was a long way from admitting that he could do nothing about it himself. He was positive that this humiliating experience, plus the knowledge he had acquired, would keep him sober the rest of his life. Self-knowledge would fix it. We heard no more of Fred for a while. One day we were told that he was back in the hospital. This time he was quite shaky. He soon indicated that he was anxious to see us. The story he told us is much instructive, for here was a chap absolutely convinced that he had to stop drinking, who had no excuse for drinking, who exhibited splendid judgment, determination, and all other concerns, yet was flat on his back nevertheless. Let us tell you about it. I was much impressed with what you fellows had to say about alcoholism, and I frankly didn't believe that it was possible for me to drink again. I rather appreciated your ideas about the subtle insanity that precedes the first drink, but I was confident that it couldn't happen to me after what I'd learned. I reasoned I was not so far advanced as most of you fellas, that I'd been unusually successful in licking my other personal problems, and that I would therefore be successful where you men had failed. I felt I had every right to be self-confident, that it would be only a matter of exercising my willpower, keeping on guard. In this frame of mind, I went about my business. For a time, all was well. I had no trouble refusing drinks and began to wonder if I had not been making too hard work of a simple matter. One day, I went to Washington to present some accounting evidence to a governmental bureau.
Perfect, thank you. Question 1 is a 3-parter. Sorry. Did he express any interest?
He was interested.
And the B part, to what did he concede?
He conceded that he had some of the symptoms.
But he was a long way from what?
But he was a long way from admitting that he could do nothing about it himself.
The next question. With the humiliation he had experienced and the knowledge that the AAs had given him, what was he certain he could do?
He was positive that this humiliating experience, plus the knowledge he had acquired, would keep him sober the rest of his life.
And question 5, what did Fred believe would fix him?
Self-knowledge would fix it.
Perfect. Okay, we're going to stop there. Do we have any last comments as we wrap this up for tonight?
Justin.
Yeah, so I just real quick before we wrap up, this last sentence that we've talked about, the ego and a little bit tonight, and the self and self-knowledge and these ideas. This last sentence of that paragraph, that he was positive that this humiliating experience plus the knowledge he had acquired would keep him sober the rest of his life. Self-knowledge would fix it. It is kind of contrary to what really takes place in the early portion of the steps. So as I enter into my full knowledge of the problem rather, the more I learned appropriately about the problem and measured against my experience, the very last thing that came out of that was any kind of confidence. It was the antithesis of confidence that I felt. I felt a kind of a bottomless pit of hopelessness. And so, right here, he's given a clear indication that lining up with the first step truth hasn't occurred yet. There's still a little bit more to be revealed to Fred. So that's all.
Thanks, Justin. Robin, we're going to let you wrap it up. Ms. Mitchell, you have to unmute yourself.
Hi, I just wanted to say about the similarities between Fred and Bill. So Bill, gets the info in Towns Hospital from Silkworth, got a physical allergy, the mental obsession. Sorry, Bill, but you're going to die. There's no hope. You're going to drink yourself to death. And he's positive at that point that Bill's humiliating experience, plus the knowledge he had acquired, would keep him sober the rest of his life. And so Fred has to kind of follow Bill's path of drinking again and actually finding out what being hopeless means. So thank you.
Thanks, Robin. Okay. Our book is meant to be suggestive only. We realize we only know a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and us. Ask him in your morning meditation what you can do for the man who is still each day for the man who is still sick. The answers will come if your own house is in order. But obviously you cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. This is the great fact for us. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to him and your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and we will surely meet some of you as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then. Big Book, page 164. It is the practice of the primary purpose group to offer a desire chip to anyone wishing to begin their journey to sobriety. Taking this chip indicates a desire to stop drinking for good and all. Does anyone want to begin their journey tonight? Please raise your hand. Okay.
Who's that? Well, it looks like we have Chris.
Yeah, hey guys, Chris Alcoholic once again. Like I said, I'm gonna take a desire chip until you tell me to stop. But day 4, here we go, back on the horse.
Great.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else? If you would like, we're good. If you would like to, our 7th tradition states that each group ought to be self-supporting through their own contributions. If this is your first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, we ask that you be our guest. We are glad you are here and hope you will come back and become a part of our lives. If you would like to make a contribution to the group, you can do so via Cash App. This is a free private app, so the only people who are aware of your contribution are you and the steering committee. And our Cash App username is #PPGAA Dallas. And Hannah, will you put that in the chat?
Yes, it's actually $, Lee.
$. What did I say?
You said $.
Oh, Lord. Yeah, you can. Sorry.
It's close. It's in the chat.
Okay, so now for the announcements. Our regularly scheduled in-person meetings have been temporarily suspended due to the coronavirus. For the month of October, we will remain virtually meeting via Zoom Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays at 7:30 p.m. You are welcome to log in as early as 7 p.m. to talk to fellow attendees. If you haven't been receiving our emails and would like to, get with either your sponsor or a steering committee member and let them know you would like to be added to the email list. Currently, our meetings are Tuesdays and Thursdays Big Book Study and Saturdays at 7:30 Step Speaker. The second Thursday of the month will be a foundation meeting, and Julio Castaneda is our foundation meeting speaker for October. If you have any ideas or suggestions that might make our group more effective, give them to Hannah Saccone, Chris Nair, Melissa Terenke, Devery Rapido, Lee Tidwell, or Dave Freeman. Our Saturday night step speaker for the month of October is Lisa Cronky. She's fantastic, so grab a friend and come back on Saturday night. Birthday night is being postponed so we can celebrate in person. Please visit our newly redone website at ppgaadallas.org. You can find a lot of information on there, and the study guide is also on there. If your main problem is drugs or narcotics, CA, DAA, HA, or one of several other fellowships is where you will find your solution. But everyone is welcome to join our open meetings. We invite you to study with us. We recover by the steps we take, not the meetings we make. Let's close with the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen. All right.
Thank you, Lee.
Guys.
Great job,
Great job, Lee.
Thanks, ladies.